Okay, so good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us for our ForGround breakout session. I'm Scott Speck, U.S. Product Marketing Manager for Climate FieldView, and I'm super excited to be here to introduce the ForGround by Bayer presentation and one of my good friends, Matt Reinhardt. A few housekeeping items before we begin the session today. I want everybody to know that this session is being recorded, and we will post this session to our YouTube channel. So if you'd like to come back to it later, or like to share with others who couldn't attend today, we will be able to have that available on our YouTube channel. A couple other things is that all attendee cameras and microphones have been intentionally disabled, but if you have any questions, you can feel free to post those in the chat as we go along. The chat will be visible here by all attendees, and we will answer those questions as we get to the end of the presentation today for the Q&A portion. So anything that comes to mind as we go throughout the session, don't be shy, make sure you get that into the Q&A area. Any unanswered questions that we have, if we run out of time for some reason, we will also follow up with you post-event to make sure that we get those answered. So to start off, I'm going to introduce ForGround, and then I'll introduce our presenter here today, Matt Reinhardt. So if you don't know about ForGround, ForGround by Bayer is a new farmer-first digital platform that supports growers considering, adopting, and expanding regenerative agriculture practices. Individuals who join ForGround unlock access to expert agronomic support, resources, and exclusive discounts. Plus, they have opportunities to earn income through programs that incentivize the implementation of new practices such as no-till, strip-till, or cover crops, like the Bayer Carbon Program. I also do want to thank Matt and the ForGround team as they did sponsor some FieldView drives for today's session. So as we get to the end of the presentations, you'll see a link for a survey. That's about a 30-second survey. If you take that, you'll be entered to win a chance for a FieldView drive. So wanted to give a good shout out to the ForGround group. I think that's an awesome opportunity for attendees here today. So without further ado, I'll get to our speaker. Our speaker today is Matt Reinhardt. Matt is the Carbon Product Marketing Manager for ForGround by Bayer. Matt is full of energy. He brings a lot of enthusiasm, both an extensive background in field sales and marketing, to the Bayer Carbon team. Matt has his Bachelor's of Science in Ag Science from Penn State University, and then after college, he joined BASF as part of their Sales and Marketing Development Program. Matt has been important in the way that he launched several BASF brands, including Ingenia herbicide, both with strategic retail and distribution partners in the Illinois row crop markets. He joins us today from the Bayer Carbon team from AgBiome. At AgBiome, he helped establish the go-to-market strategy in specialty crop markets for their first Omri product launch with Howler fungicide. Matt has been with us in the Bayer Carbon team since August of 2022 and is focused on delivering growers value in the ForGround by Bayer platform through ForGround's three value pillars that you'll hear about today. And those three pillars are providing growers with agronomic support, providing discounts and rebates on equipment and things like cover crop seeds and inputs to reduce the cost of adopting new practices, and enabling new revenue streams that you'll hear about, like the Bayer Carbon Program. So super excited for today's session. We'll be here for an hour here today. So again, if you do have questions as we go throughout the day, make sure you post those in the chat. When we get to the end of the session, I'll post the link to go back to the main session where we'll have our panel discussion. But Matt, with that, I will turn it over to you. You have the floor for the next hour, and excited to hear more about ForGround by Bayer.
You got it, Scott. Thank you so much. And thank you all for joining me today for a little bit of information on our ForGround by Bayer regenerative ag platform and our Bayer Carbon program. And with that, I do have to kick it right off with, before we discuss our ForGround platform, we do have to talk about carbon, because that is really the genesis of why we launched the ForGround by Bayer platform and where we are today. There are a ton of questions, a lot of, I guess I'll call it, I don't want to say misinformation, being just from the political standpoint there, but there is so much varying levels of information on the market when it comes to carbon programs. By and large, all of these kind of private programs will incentivize a farmer who's practicing conventional field management in some way, shape, or form. Maybe it's conventional tillage, or maybe you're not planting a cover crop. These programs will incentivize farmers like yourselves to adopt regenerative practices such as reduced tillage, cover cropping, reducing your nitrogen use, or even just implementing an NUE, pairing an NUE with your fertilizer, to a slow release or something like that. That's really carbon programs at face value. but we all know carbon programs are not that simple. Shoot, I was just doing an analysis of some of our competitors' carbon programs today, and I came up very quickly with a list of over 30 different programs available on the market. And there are a ton of questions around each of those. Number one, implementing regenerative ag when it comes to actually putting the farm practices into your own management plans. What does that entail? What exactly do I have to do to my fields to be eligible for these carbon credits? This number one point here is something that at the end of the day, as stewards of your land, y'all are often going to be the experts there. And so it's kind of gets into kind of a weird area where, hey, planting cover crops year after year, following all crop programs, there's a lot of considerations that you have to take from that standpoint, just when thinking about the agronomics of some of these carbon programs. Number two, enrolling in programs can be very confusing. There are some programs I've seen where there's no public information. You've really got to get a hold of somebody within the program. It's really hard to even explore what the options are, what you might get paid, what they would entail. And then lastly, one of the biggest questions we get is, how do I get paid? What do I ultimately have to do? I've adopted the practice. What all else follows? And what do I have to do to ultimately get that check? And that's really what we like to address with ForGround by Bayer. ForGround by Bayer is the all-in-one regenerative ag platform supporting growers and adopting regenerative ag practices through our three value pillars. So ForGround will provide you science-based agronomic support and resources. We have a dedicated team of sustainable systems agronomists associated with our ForGround platform and our Bayer Carbon program. These folks, they're positioned around the country so that you'll have a sustainable agronomist pretty local to your area. They come from a long background of NRCS and university extension, and they've been helping farmers like with NRCS programs previously, if maybe NRCS had a cover crop incentive program, something like that. So they're extremely knowledgeable. They're trained as scientists. And we just sort of co-opted them to say, hey, let's hone in on just a couple practices here that we'd like to adopt, and they're available to help you make a custom plan for your farm. Along with that agronomic support, those one-on-one touch points, we are powered by FieldView. So everything the ForGround platform is built on, the underlying technology is the FieldView platform. So whenever you are adding your data layers, putting a planting pass or an application pass, tracking that information in FieldView, we can envision a future where not only are you going to be able to derive the kind of insights you already get from FieldView, but also even more tailored insights and tailored suggestions and recommendations from FieldView on, hey, are these practices I'm doing when I start no-tilling this field, is it actually paying off from an ROI perspective, not just from a carbon program perspective. So our second value and the second thing we aim to accomplish with ForGround is providing you savings on equipment, inputs, and other technology necessary to adopt these new practices. With our Bayer Carbon program, the practices of strip tillage, no tillage, and cover cropping are the three that would make you eligible for a payment. We know that there are associated costs with adopting those practices, and it's really our goal with ForGround, similar to this FieldView Partner Connect event, to bring on a host of partners that can help you adopt those technologies at a discounted rate. So when we take a look at some of our partnerships we have here on the top right-hand side of the screen, we partner with Great Plains to give you access to their portfolio of box drills. Whether you're planting soybeans or planting a cover crop, you can get an exclusive discount when you're a ForGround member on their lineup of box drills. ETS Soil Warrior, they offer strip till toolbars. We've got another discount exclusive to our ForGround members there as well. Bear Max's nitrogen recommendation technology. their N check, water check, and yield check software. We've got discounts for being a ForGround member on those as well. The list goes on. One exciting one is Earth Optics. They're a newer soil testing company that we've partnered with to help give you discounted soil testing technology. So their Haney test, which is really the all-in-one soil testing solution, giving you 20, 30 plus different data parameters. Usually costs like 25, 30 bucks an acre, and Earth Optics can do it at about half that with an even nicer discount if you're a ForGround member as well. So lots of these companies already partnered with ForGround and quite a few more to come. Redcop is one we actually just partnered with. That was a recent announcement here this week. So but last but not least, the third thing that we aim to deliver you through ForGround is access to new revenue streams, ultimately getting paid for the way you farm. We have our first program, the Bayer Carbon program. We have been in a pilot phase with Bayer Carbon since 2016, scaling that ever since. And then when we recognize that, hey, there's a lot more to it than just coming to a website and signing up for a Bayer Carbon program. There's a lot more to consider than that. And that's why we launched ForGround, is to address all those other issues. At the same time, when Bayer partners with other companies in the supply chain, other consumer packaged good companies, we need a way to be able to offer those companies programs as well. And those will be hosted within ForGround. So our business development team is actively working on over a dozen new partnerships with upstream companies that would source grain and then would be looking to, say, market that grain under a carbon neutral label or reduce their carbon footprint per government regulations, or just because of that's their commitment for ESG guidelines there. So first up is the Bayer Carbon program. We did launch a program with Purdue as well. So if you're a grower in the Northeast, we have a similar experience to the ForGround platform that I can demo for you. That is tailored to growers who deliver grain to Purdue. So, and we've got a lot more of these programs coming down the pipe. And I'll let you in on a little secret because you joined the chat today. A lot of them are offering very robust payments on a per acre basis. So stay tuned. The Bayer Carbon program is one where, and you know what, I'll get into that a little bit more here in a second. Just some of the differentiation on that specifically, but by and large, ForGround, to sum it all up, is kind of your one-stop shop if you're interested in carbon programs. We'll have no shortage of different programs for you to enroll in. We're actually undergoing a facelift right now of our ForGround platform. So whenever you log in, and I can demonstrate in the demo here in a little bit, you'll be able to really see field by field, hey, what programs are available for this field. Maybe one is incentivizing nitrogen reduction, and you would want to enroll that field in that program. But maybe there's a different one that would be more prudent to enroll in the carbon program for your max ROI. So when it comes to the Bayer Carbon program, it's really the most simple and flexible and certain program on the market. When we take a look at any of these proof points, just the enrollment process, it all happens within ForGround. And all of the data requirements associated with that are submitted within FieldView. So if you've already got FieldView connectivity with a FieldView drive, you can wirelessly stream that data. So most of the data can actually be automated, and it's not a manual process where you're going back and doubling up on information submission, on data submission there. It's also very flexible. Say you get you plant your beans, you get a pounding rain the next day, and you've got a thick layer of crust. Those beans might break their heads off before they even have a chance to make it out of the soil. We're not going to kick you out of the program if weather forces you to make an unplanned change. And it's also finally certain. The moment you sign the contract, you know what you're going to earn. It's not based off of tonnage sequestered. It's not dependent on whether or not we can sell a carbon credit. We are going to pay you for the effort that you put into your farm management. and we will share in any future upside. So just taking a look at some of those proof points again, on the simplicity, it's a per acre payment per practice. Again, all the data submitted within FieldView. Whenever you're in the ForGround platform, it will automatically pull your fields over from FieldView, and you can check, is this field eligible? We just have a 6-question survey to find out. It's flexible in that you can enroll any number of fields. We do have a 10-acre minimum there, but there is no limit to the number of fields or acres you can enroll, and really no minimum beyond that 10-acre there. So you can pause the program. And as I alluded to earlier, we will have multiple program offerings for any acre. So you won't be locked into, hey, just a carbon program, but maybe I want to enroll this field that delivers grain to Purdue and get some premiums there. Maybe I can enroll this field that delivers grain to a PepsiCo facility or something, just as an example. It's also certain, again, it's not determined by the tonnage of carbon you sequester. We do go and verify just to measure for our own purposes how much carbon is being sequestered in the soil when you make these practice changes, but your payment is not dependent on that. So that's something that is very unique. We're seeing quite a few of our competitors co-opt this model just because of the uncertainty. If you have a dry year, you did everything right, you might not have pulled down as much carbon, you might not have built up the organic matter as much as you would in a wet year with great growing conditions. So, all that carbon is getting sequestered really through the decay of roots. So just the more robust crop you have, the more and cover crop you have, the more carbon you're pulling down. So, and then lastly, when the market value of carbon goes up, your earnings are going to go up. You could just take a look back even 4 years ago. Fair carbon, we were only paying $3 an acre if you adopted no-till as a practice. Today, it's double that. We're up to $6 an acre, and we've got indications this is only going to go up here in the short term. So, at a glance, the other thing that makes the Bayer Carbon program different is that we will pay you for historical practices. It's a one-time payment as soon as you. And I guess I should say, if you have already submitted that data in FieldView, there might be some additional tillage and irrigation information that you'd have to submit. But say you started cover cropping on a field just after your 2020 harvest, you went in and planted a cover crop for the first time. We'll pay you back to 3 years for historical practices. So it's been an issue with carbon programs for quite a while. We recognize that there are tons of growers. I mean, no-till started becoming mainstream maybe back in the 60s or 70s, and there's quite a few growers who have been no-till in their fields since then. And because of the kind of the regulations around the carbon market from the carbon registries, they are right now excluded from these carbon programs. We are fighting that fight as Bayer, trying to ensure that growers who have been doing these regenerative practices for a long time get compensated as they should for those. But that's a battle that's going to take time. What we've got in the interim is a 3-year look back for you to earn that really high one-time per acre payment. So, and that's a payment that's made again as soon as that data is submitted in FieldView. When you go through your field eligibility and ForGround, it'll tell you, hey, this is good for a 3-year payment. So 3-year look back. So when we take a look at, hey, say I'm interested in adopting cover crops or reducing my tillage this fall, you've got a $6 an acre payment per practice, depending on your geography there. So just to look at it from the kind of the time frame of where we are today, this is what it would look like, is up to a $12 an acre payment annually. That payment, again, if you did have to make an unplanned tillage pass just to terminate a crop and replant one, that program would be paused for that year and you would not receive a payment for that year. But the next year that you picked the practice up and had full intentions of continuing that, pending any unplanned weather events, your payment would resume. And then again, you get that $36 an acre historical practice, up to $36 an acre for historical practice if you began both of those practices after your 2020 harvest there. So with that, I would like to give you a quick demo of what the ForGround by Bayer platform looks like, how to enroll, and then really how it plays pretty seamlessly with FieldView. So I'm going to go ahead here and just flip my screen over. How's this look, Scott?
Looks good. Yep, I see your webpage.
Perfect. We are in business. The platform itself, if you go to BayerForGround.com, that's where you access it. Like I mentioned, we are going through it's a little bit of software development here, so this could look a little different a quarter from now, but I promise you it will only be easier to work with. So we're not going backwards here. To enroll, simply click this box up here on the right. You'll get the prompt here to log in using your Climate FieldView email account and password. Since y'all are all on this call today, that tells me that you are already Climate FieldView users, and it's as simple as, again, logging in with those Climate FieldView credentials. So what this is doing here, this is, you'll notice kind of the FieldView look and feel to this screen here. What it's doing is giving ForGround the access to talk to the FieldView platform and just auto-populate those fields from FieldView. I'm in rural PA, so please be patient with my loading times here. Let's try reloading that. There we go. This is our ForGround dashboard here. In this page, you'll get an overview of how many fields you have mapped in Climate FieldView, your total acreage mapped in Climate FieldView, and then below that, it'll tell you how many fields you've enrolled in the Bayer Carbon program. And in this case, it's saying I don't have any fields enrolled yet because I haven't signed my carbon contract yet. So if you have selected that you want to enroll fields, you'll notice this signed contract that can be found either here or in your documents tab up at the top. Based on the fields that I have selected to enroll in my enroll fields tab, it'll tell you what your estimated Bayer Carbon annual payout is going to be and how many acres that you have left that are not opted to enroll in the Bayer Carbon program. So also on this page, we've got just our highlights, you know, our spring weather outlook. We've got partnerships with quite a few companies that we try to collaborate with and generating all this content just to make sure that you've got some relevant information down here. If you are interested in enrolling in carbon programs, this is where you would do it in your left tab here. And here's where you'll see all of your fields populated that you have in FieldView. So I've got my home here on a modest quarter of an acre. Unfortunately, that does not meet my 10-acre minimum for enrolling in a carbon program. It's also not in an eligible county. Being out here in Pennsylvania, it might be for the Purdue program though. So that is in a different enrollment experience there. And I would, if we do happen to have any growers who deliver grain to Purdue, I would have you give your contact person there a call. So we do have a couple fields. These are the two that I'd opted to enroll in the carbon program. When we select here and then fill out our eligibility information, that'll tell you if it's eligible or not right here up at the top. And then you would just need to click submit, and that status would change to submitted. So what I would recommend if you're interested in enrolling multiple fields in a carbon program is to select all those fields that you're interested in enrolling, and then use our multi-fill feature, where all 4 of these fields that you've selected, you can enter the same information for each of them. Maybe they have a couple nuances to them, maybe my home 200 was corn and Lover's Hilltop was a soybean crop that year. And make those differences afterwards just to save you some time there. So it can be really easy to go through and enroll multiple fields in one go. All of these are pulled directly over from your field boundaries that you have mapped in FieldView as well. So when we're looking at our documents tab, again, this is where you would sign your final contract if you had submitted fields. And then ownership. It doesn't matter. You don't have to be the owner of your field, but we do have a landowner attestation form, and you would fill that out here as well underneath. So when we take a look at all of the resources, this is kind of getting back to our agronomic support. Not only our really robust agronomic resource, they're going to be our personnel. They're going to be those agronomists that we have in the field that were trained specifically in this subject. How do we get growers successfully implementing cover crops and reducing their tillage? But we also have quite a few different articles and white papers on the subject as well. So always stay tuned here. Lots of demo videos. I really like this one here. What's all the fuss about regenerative ag and carbon credits? And here we've got a couple of our agronomists that really talk through it in a way different than you would see typically just from any sort of website or any communications like that. So last but not least, when we're here on the portal, we have our benefits page. This is where you would go to redeem any of those discounts I had discussed on Great Plains Ag, Earth Optics, ETS. Clicking any of these cards here would pull up your redemption form. Once you're a ForGround member, you can print any of those off and just take it either directly to Earth Optics, take it to your ETS salesperson, take it to your Great Plains dealer, and redeem your discount that way. So we are also offering Climate FieldView Plus for free if you are a ForGround member. This is a limited time deal, so make sure you take advantage of that by joining ForGround today. And then last but not least, Climate FieldView recently launched a new feature called Data Manager, and I'll get into that in just a second, but you do get access as a ForGround member, early access to FieldView Data Manager, just to play around with that as well. And with that, I'd like to demonstrate to you how does FieldView play into this whole equation here. I mentioned it's really the basics, it's the foundation for the FieldView platform as a whole. And that it becomes even more apparent when we take a look at FieldView's newest feature, Data Manager. So when we're looking back at our enrolled fields, this list right here is populated right from our list of fields that we have in FieldView. And then when you enroll in ForGround, you'll have this Data Manager feature activated. What is Data Manager? It is all of your operation level and field level data in one place, regardless of the data ingest source. So whether you stream your data via your FieldView Drive into your cab app, whether you just track that application on your phone after you make the application, say, hey, I just planted this field, this variety of beans, whatever else. Or if you like to go back and track what your field work you're doing on a rainy afternoon, once you get some downtime, Data Manager is the one place that it will all be hosted here in the future. Again, you get this limited access, limited early access here if you are a ForGround member. And you can see you can upload data files. So if you've already got those shape files, maybe if you're running a Deere tractor and you've got my cab app, you can upload those shape files right here in your data inbox. Or you can add those data layers for each field individually. So when we're taking a look at carbon programs, these are the 5 data layers that are required for nearly every carbon program. Like I mentioned, it is these third parties, these carbon registries that are really setting the parameters for what can a carbon program be. And they do require certain types of data. As we're working more and more just directly with these consumer packaged goods companies like Purdue and some of the others that we've got coming down the pipe, There are differences there because they might just be seeking to do something very specific. They might want to be marketing the grain in a certain way if it's a elevator. So, but when we look at that planning data, you can go through, select your field, enter your information for our Bayer Carbon program. Again, these are the 5 data layers that are required for the program. We're undergoing a little bit of a facelift of our ForGround platform. And likewise, Data Manager is always evolving as well. It was built to be a dynamic tool that can service any number of programs or any number of utilities. So whether you're a seedsman, whether you are a grower and enrolled in any other type of program, you can see here, we've got our carbon program filter up here at the top. And what that would do is just sort out, hey, which one of these fields do I have enrolled in carbon, and do I need to actually go through and finish adding my data for? So you can envision a future where that might be called out, hey, I've got all this information planted, but you know what? I forgot, did I irrigate this field or not? And it'll just remind you, hey, oh, this is not an irrigated field, and to select that. So at any rate, submitting all this data in FieldView and tracking it. Quite a few folks use FieldView already just for the insights that it gives, allowing you to track, what crop do you have planted where, what varieties, when did I spray this field? I'm just thinking back to my time at BASF around dicamba applications, how useful it would have been if I could have, and if BASF had the very robust digital farming platform that we have here in FieldView. Walking those dicamba complaints was not fun, and then especially trying to figure out, hey, when did we spray this field? When did this field next to us get sprayed? Was it maybe a status application on corn that drifted over and not dicamba, not ingenia? Just having these kinds of tools is not only useful from a carbon perspective, but there is so much more information that you can derive from these. There's many other FieldView features like the reports data, your field prescriptions, and then of course any of the other insights that you're used to using. So the more information that you have trusted with FieldView, the more they'll be able to tell you about your fields and just about suggestions on what you might want to think about for the next season. So without further ado, how am I doing on time, Scott? I'm flying through this pretty quick, I bet, but actually I'm looking at the clock and it's already 3 o'clock here.
Yeah, doing well. We do have quite a few questions too, Matt. So if you do end early, that is totally fine. So we've got lots of interest, lots of questions. So
Beautiful.
All good.
Well, that's perfect because I'm at my key takeaways here. Just remember, y'all, ForGround by Bayer membership is free. It takes less than 60 seconds to enroll if you've already got your FieldView account. Benefits can be accessed even if you are not currently eligible for a carbon program. So, and I do need to make a point there. We do have a few benefits that are carbon program exclusive. Think of it like a silver discount versus a gold discount, something like that. But if you do enroll in the carbon program, there are some other exclusives, some yield underwriting guarantees and things like that you can be a part of. But all the ones I mentioned in the call today earlier, those are available to you just for being a ForGround member. You also get access to our agronomy team, that one-on-one support for being a ForGround member as well, whether you're a carbon grower or not. So the Bayer Carbon program, it is the most simple, flexible, and certain program on the market. You enroll via the ForGround platform. And the future boasts a pipeline of new programs, new grower benefits. As product marketing manager, those grower benefits, that's really what takes up a lot of my day-to-day, is just building those bridges. And then again, resources offering even more flexibility and higher payments from multiple companies. So stay tuned by joining ForGround by Bayer to be apprised of all those programs coming down the pipeline. Some of these programs, I will say, that we have in the works today, they have acreage limitations where it's a very high payment. Some of these companies are only I'm looking for 50,000 acres to enroll in Illinois. If you're a ForGround member, that's the best way to stay aware of all these programs coming down the pipe. So We just launched in August 15th, so we're coming up on our 1 year anniversary here pretty quickly, and really excited again just to have this. You'll notice quite a bit. I gave you the ForGround demo as it stands today, but it's going to look a little bit different here even here in 2 or 3 months. So I apologize for that, but get a hold of me. Get a hold of me if you want to get another demo when that time rolls around. So. And then last but not least, and Scott, maybe I'll leave this slide up here while I field some questions. We've got a calculator where you can pretty quickly get an idea of what you stand to earn with the program on that bottom QR code. And then if you want to be entered in our FieldView Drive sweepstakes, it's that 30-second survey right on the top QR code. So.
Excellent. No, great job, Matt. I think that was an awesome overview of ForGround by Bayer, as well as just how the industry is taking into account all the things that are changing and what's new, and we're moving with them. So, as I mentioned at the beginning, if you do have questions, make sure to post those in the chat. I do have quite a few here, Matt. I've tried to order them around a little bit, but maybe we'll start with this one as the first question. What's the biggest difference between ForGround by Bayer and the Bayer Carbon Program?
So really, it's that that difference I had just described. ForGround by Bayer is our portal where we're trying to help growers out, no matter where you're at, whether you're ready to join a carbon program or whether you're kind of like, man, I saw my neighbor, he stopped tilling his field last year, and maybe I want to learn a little bit more about it. That ForGround by Bayer. That's your solution there. It's really the platform where you can not only get access to agronomic support and all those discounts that can maybe help you take that step, but also subsequently enroll in carbon programs. So that's where all these programs are accessed. And you'll see quite a few more, where it's not just the Bayer carbon program, but, I wish, Scott, if we were having this conversation, having this meeting in like 2 or 3 months from now, it would be so exciting because it's, envision any other number of companies in front of carbon program. We've got a lot of partnerships with these producers. We're really excited to launch here where you'll be able to take part in whoever you're delivering grain to. There's likely going to be a carbon program for you. So that'll all be hosted within the ForGround platform.
Yeah, that's great, man. I think that's a big part of the discussion here today too, is that even if I'm somebody that isn't eligible for the Bayer Carbon Program for some reason, right? Maybe I've been doing practices for a while, or I'm not in an eligible county. ForGround still gives opportunities for farmers to come in and learn more, to understand, to grab some of those rebates and just potentially to their operations. So I think that's a really unique thing that ForGround offers to customers.
Yeah, you nailed it. You nailed it. Well, as I said, I'm the marketing manager for ForGround and our Bayer Carbon program, and I can't tell you how aggravating it is. That right now our carbon program, because of the geographic restrictions, we can't offer growers in any state a solution. But thankfully, through these partnerships and these future programs coming down the pipe, we'll be building that out. So maybe you're in a state right now that is not eligible. Stay tuned.
Yep, I think that's a key part of it, is being a member in ForGround gives the opportunity to know, right? Be in the know and have an aggregation of all these things that are happening around regenerative ag and carbon, and being able to know what's happening from a reliable source within ForGround. So I think that's huge. I know this one was part of your key takeaways, but a question that came in a couple times, so I'll make sure to hit it again. But I'm interested in learning more about carbon programs, maybe about transitioning to regenerative ag practices. What's the cost again for signing up for ForGround?
ForGround is free. There's no cost to signing up. You look at the cost of your time. Again, it's less than 60 seconds to sign up if you've already got your FieldView, your climate account. If you do not have a climate account yet, well, I guess I shouldn't even take it to that point because we got a whole bunch of climate users on the call today. So that's fantastic. But that would really be the only other time commitment, is creating your FieldView account, mapping your field boundaries, and then subsequently using those credentials to log on to ForGround. So
awesome. A couple of questions around carbon program offerings and eligibility. So maybe I'll ask this one first. how do I learn more about new carbon program offerings? You mentioned a couple. There's potentially some others coming in the next few months. What's the best way for me to learn about what's new coming for carbon program offers?
Yep. Joining ForGround by Bayer. When you join ForGround by Bayer, and you connect your FieldView account there, and share those field boundaries, we'll be able to see, hey, this grower is in Illinois, and guess what? We just had an exciting new partnership launch. We'll be able to send you those emails that say, hey, there's a new program in your area that you're eligible for. Take a look at it. Maybe you want to sign up. So.
Perfect. And then one other one that maybe is related even to programs today. How do I tell if I am eligible? I'm not sure if I'm in an eligible county or if my practices are eligible. Where do I start?
So if, number one, you could just go to ForGround, log in. It'll bring your fields over like I showed. And when you answer those six question field eligibility survey, it'll tell you there if you're eligible or not for historic payment, for future years payment. But even then, an even easier way beyond that is this bottom right QR code. If you scan that, that'll take you right to our payment calculator on our website. And if you just click, hey, I'm in this county, I'm in Champaign County, Illinois. I'm interested in adopting cover crops this year. It'll spit you out an answer, less than 30 seconds to fill that joker out. And you'll at least have a rough idea there.
Awesome. Have a couple others on partnerships and the sustainable agronomy team, but I did see one come in here. Who owns the carbon flex for the 3-year look back period and the current year? So those 4 years of inventory when I sign up for the program.
Sorry, who owns the carbon what?
The carbon credits, the carbon flex. Who would purchase and own that essentially once a grower signs up?
Yeah. So again, we've got quite a few different folks that will ultimately be the end user purchasers. When it's just like carbon credits, we would really sell those to a broker and let them manage some airline company, an energy company. Somebody's looking to offset their footprint just for good PR, or maybe they're required to by the government. But with some of our future programs coming down the pipeline, there are companies interested in those historical carbon credits as well. If you've been delivering grain to one of those CPG companies that ultimately ends up in their product, they would be interested in seeing, oh wait, this grower, they actually adopted and have been helping make our product more sustainable for the last 3 years, and they would incentivize that as well. So it's really a whole range of places that could go.
Excellent. That's a great answer. Question here around the sustainable agronomy team, and I think this is a big part of the ForGround benefits, but also that transition to new practices is that it takes people, and I think that's something I hope FieldView users here on the call have that strong team around them, whether it's your dealer, your climate enablement specialist, your climate enablement manager that can help you through different transitions, whether that's even pulling up and trying new equipment on the farm to making prescriptions. In the same way, Matt, it sounds like the sustainable agronomy team is really there to help build those custom type plans for a farm. Can you tell us a little more about what can the sustainable agronomist team do? What are some of the benefits that team helps with on a local basis with some of the participants?
Yeah. I mean, it's really as in depth as you want it to go. If you've already adopted practices and say, hey, I'm ready to sign up for a carbon program, I've just got some questions and I'd really like to talk to a real person. Our sustainable agronomy team is our go-to. Even before that, if you're interested in just learning more about what do I need to think about, say really your dealer who's going to sell you some cover crop seed, or maybe your local equipment dealer who would sell you a strip till toolbar, they're probably going to be the experts in, hey, for this geography, these are the considerations for this strip till implement specifically. But what these sustainable agronomy team can help you do is just help you take a little bit bigger perspective and some of the other considerations. When you're strip tilling or when you're no tilling, when you're planting a cover crop, what can I do to manage the slugs? Some of those things where it's a little bit more of a holistic point of view that they can give you just around considerations around adopting these practices as a whole. So I'll say a lot of them are very well versed. They know their chems, they know their seeds, but and so they can speak to that quite a bit just from the folks I know. But they really are those experts in actually successfully implementing these new practices. So because it's not just as simple. Like I said, you can't just plant a cover crop and then there's what are you going to do? How are you going to burn it down? How are you going to terminate it? How's it going to affect your planting next year? Really, all those questions. They can help you come up with those questions and just say, hey, these are the things that I would consider. Again, they are based all around the country, so they do have that more local knowledge to help address some of those different growing conditions. So
Perfect. No, I love that. Another question maybe around the partnership side, and you don't have to tell us any in-depth secrets of what's coming, but do you see new partnerships that are coming to ForGround by Bayer, potentially with new discounts, rebates in the future? How do you see that evolving over time?
yeah, we sure do. Yeah, it's a pretty nice mix of companies coming to us that are saying, hey, we've got a product that really fits I guess the regenerative grower, and we'd like to partner with you. And then it's also a mix of I'll just point at our Great Plains and our ETS partnerships. Those are partnerships that we at Bayer started because we realized, hey, if we're asking growers to start strip tilling, some of those toolbars can be pretty expensive. So we better do everything that we can to try and hopefully offset that cost through a carbon program payment, but maybe even on the front end, help to bring down that initial cost a little bit. So that's really where those partnerships all stem from. Was just at the end of the day trying to deliver a better experience overall. So yeah, we
Very
don't
good.
have any sort of limit on we're only gonna have 10 partners here, or we're open to all of them. I can give you a little bit of insight. We're really exploring right now a lot more regional partners. So especially when it comes to cover crops, that's been one of the challenges is finding. It's really tough to find a national company that has a cover crop offering for every specific geography. A lot of time, those cover crop varieties or cover crop mixes, even they're going to be mixes that are tailored to a very specific region by a specific cover crop provider. So that's something that I'm working on now is really trying to hone in on, hey, what would be some of these more very regional that would hopefully just deliver you a higher value, whether we can provide a discount on that cover crop, something like that, is really my goal.
Excellent. And then maybe to add on to that a little bit, so there's a partner in there today maybe that I'm interested in. I'm a ForGround member. Where do I go to redeem those ForGround grower benefits?
So yeah, in the ForGround platform there, when we took a look at the demo, right on the left-hand side of your screen, you'll see a couple tabs there. If you go to your benefits tab, scroll down and you'll see each of those content cards there. Simple as logging into the platform, clicking on benefits, and then any of those content cards will bring up your redemption form. Some of them you just have to go into call it your Great Plains dealer and bring them your redemption coupon there, and they will discount that price of your box drill. Others, you would just reach out. Earth Optics is a good example of that. They'll come to your field no matter where you're at, but they don't have retail locations per se. But it's as simple as shooting them an email. Hey, I'm a ForGround member. I want a Haney test. I want a soil compaction test. Those soil compaction tests are only like $4 an acre through Earth Optics. So with the ForGround discount, so simple as shooting them an email and letting them know that you'd like to redeem.
Very cool. I've got two more questions that came in. So if you do have a question, make sure to get it in the chat before we end up here at 2:20. So one of the last ones here is, Matt, you mentioned there's lots of different programs out there today. I think you said almost 30. So a lot of noise, a lot of things going on in the industry. What do you see as the single biggest differentiation with the Bayer carbon program over another?
I would say the simplicity or the flexibility we've got those three big differentiators, but to me, it is really the certainty. There are programs still where they will pay you on a per acre basis, not a tonnage basis. Like I mentioned, we've seen a couple more of those start popping up. But even then, there's a lot of them where we'll give you $5 here, and then after you do this and that, we'll give you another $5. Or there's some where we'll pay you on a per acre basis, but only after we've sold your credit. And at the end of the day, with the Bear Carbon program, as soon as you sign that contract, we'll send you your carbon payment estimate. I would say make sure that your boundaries and FieldView, that's really been the only area where we've seen, oh, this has caused a little bit of where folks are using what are those called, Scott? Like the preloaded field boundaries, in FieldView. Is that
The COU boundaries, common land unit.
COU boundaries? Yep, they're pretty dang accurate, and for the most part. But we have seen a few fields where it does clip in a road or some ditches or something like that going through the field. So that would really be the only watch out. But as long as your field boundaries are accurate there, you know how much you're going to earn as soon as you enroll. And then again, that number is only going to go up. So whenever, say you do sign up today at a $6 an acre for cover crops, and we end up getting a higher market value for those carbon credits or those carbon insets down the road, you would see that your annual payment go up to $8-10, whatever that may be. So it's only ever going to go up, and it's really that certainty piece is the biggest differentiator.
Very good. I think that's a big part of it when we think of today's landscape, and there's so many things that you have to do to make a decision on, and so many different contacts and complexity. Having certainty is definitely a big value add. One question came in around field inspections. So when are the field inspections going to start for 2023? And should this customer expect anything different from the 2022 year?
Yeah. So field inspections are already underway. This year, our climate engagement specialist team are conducting those field walkthroughs. When you enroll in the Bear Carbon program, for the first time, they'll come out and help give you just hey, this is how you submit your data in Data Manager and help you out there. But as far as collecting other field evidence and things like that, they're actually already underway. So we began that process, I think it was 2 months ago, and it's really just getting through a backlog. But we're getting, I will say, just from the timeline I'm seeing now, it's a lot more that we're getting up front of ahead of time. So all that means is the quicker that we can get to it, the faster you'll get your check there at the end of the year. So I guess, and Greg, to your point, yeah, anything different from your 2022 year, it's really, that time frame of when we begin those field inspections. We're already underway. I don't think last year we began them until around November time frame, maybe. So it was a pretty late start that we got on it, just due to some things, partially due to launching ForGround in August. Took up a lot of resources there. But what you can expect this year is that they're beginning earlier with engaging with our CEM team, our climate engagement specialist team, and then an earlier payment. So
excellent. We've got a little over 2 minutes left. So last question maybe here for the day was a question around the contract period. So how long is somebody contracted with ForGround if they see a credit program that allows them to certify to another registry? How long is that contract period? And then would ForGround work for things like grassland or pasture?
Yeah. So it is a 10-year contract within ForGround. If you want to if you want to stay enrolled, we're looking for 10 years. Like I mentioned, you have that program pause feature for any unplanned weather events. But at the end of the day, y'all, we're not going to lock you in. If you want to withdraw from the carbon program, it's as easy as reaching out to our customer support team to withdraw. So, really the folks that we're looking for our carbon program, if it is just withdrawing to join another carbon program, I guess all I can say there is we'd like your feedback as to why that other carbon program ended up being more appealing to you. But at the end of the day, you can cancel at any time. So with no
Very good.
penalty. If you do withdraw mid-year, I guess that's the only difference I would say. If you do withdraw mid-year, you would likely be forfeiting your payment for that year. But again, the year after, you'll be good to go.
Perfect. We've got just about a minute left. Maybe this one real quick, Matt. Question around practice pictures. Should they be sent in already, or are the ForGround inspectors going to take care of those practice pictures for this year?
So practice pictures best submitted by dropping a FieldView pin in that field. But the practice inspectors, they're going to be reaching out to you. And so if you want to be proactive and get ahead of it, hey, I no-tilled this field. Just drop one of your FieldView pins in that field. Take a picture of that field in its no-till state or with some stubble from last year's crop or something. And that suffices there. They might not even bring it up during that call. But if you don't submit anything, then the CESs will reach out to you there. So
Excellent. Well, hey, we're at time, folks. Matt, thanks for the engaging and the great session. I think there was a lot of information there, but also the Q&A was great. I think you helped answer a lot of questions that folks had, and yeah, just really engaging. So again, to this group, thanks for joining our ForGround breakout session here today. What we're going to do now is go back to the main session by selecting the link that I just dropped in the chat. So you'll see a link that you can click to join back to the main session where we started today. In that main session, we're going to have a panel discussion. So just a heads up, when you return to the main session, you may see a resume button at the top of your Microsoft Teams window if you didn't exit that prior to joining this session. So that's the link to get you back into the main session with the panel. Also, be sure to stick around and make sure you enter for that chance to win the FieldView Drive sponsored by the ForGround team. So Matt, again, thanks for the sponsorship and the partnership there on the team. And thank you everyone for joining. I hope you had a great time here in this session, and we'll see you in the panel. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to learn more from our speakers. So thanks again for joining. We'll see you in the main session.
Thank you all. Really appreciate it.